As we get through our last round of tests, of papers, of presentations, we count down our days till spring break. At this time, we have 8 days left. We're so close, we can do it. We begin to daydream and think about maybe a beach or maybe our family time at home. But when you really think about spring break, have you ever wondered where it all began? Have you actually realized where it's at now? And have you thought about where it might go in the future? In this presentation, I'm going to tell you about the past, the present, and the future of spring break. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the history, where it began. I want to give you some facts and statistics of where it's at right now. And I'm going to give you a little foresight into where it might go. The first instance of spring break in history occurred in Greece, just like every other major historical event. It started nearly 2,000 years ago in a festival called Antistyria. It was a celebration of the god Dionysus, the god of wine. It was a 3 day long event where people would dance, they would sing, women would cover themselves in flowers, and men would have basically a chugging contest of who could finish a cup of red wine the fastest. So this was the first true historical event that is similar to our spring break now, and this was all confirmed in the Britannica Encyclopedia. But if you fast forward into the 20th century, the U.S.'s form of Antistyria began. In 1934, the Colgate College swim coach, his name was Sam Ingram, he was looking for a place to keep his swimmers during the off season. He needed them to stay warm and stay in shape when contests started. And he found the little city of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. He found a place called the Casino Pool. It was the first Olympic-sized pool in the United States, and how fitting, it was perfect for a swim team. So he takes his swim team down there, and this becomes an annual tradition to keep his team in shape. And other swim teams find out about it. And at one point, there were 300 different swim teams that would travel down to this location to work out in the off season. So in 1938, you have 300 swim teams. At that time, Bermuda was a popular travel place for the Ivy League students who were rich and had plenty of money to travel. But as World War II gets started, the students are in fear of German submarines and an attack, and they didn't want to get involved. So they're searching for a new place to travel. Their alternative, Fort Lauderdale, where all the swim teams are. You can kind of see where this is going. This turned into a massive co-ed event where guys and girls could interact and spend their time together. And at this point, it was mostly male-only universities, so having guys and girls mix is kind of a rarity. So they took advantage of that. This event started getting bigger and bigger, and eventually it turned into the Coaches Swim Forum, is what it was called. And it was an annual deal, and it was their form of spring break. As it grew, by 1959, there were 20,000 students. This was the first time where Time Magazine did a report over it, so this is when it became truly a massive thing. But that's not where it stopped. By 1985, there were 370,000 students in that city, in Fort Lauderdale. It was so wild that at that time, the mayor banned all students. Of course, it didn't stop them. They kept going. So that's the foundation of where it all began. But now, do you realize how big this event really is? 1.5 million students travel to places like Panama City, Florida, South Padre Island in Texas, and even Cancun in Mexico. To Panama City, over 500,000 students go. Padre, 150,000. Cancun, 100,000. Not to say the many other cities and many other students that travel. So as you can tell, with Cancun being included in this, it's an international event. This is a huge deal. Between Texas and Florida alone, over $1 billion are spent during spring break from students. With that said, you can tell it's a huge revenue boost for all these vacation spots. On average, each student spends $1,100 between gas or airfare or rent while they're on their spring break vacation. So once again, huge amount of money, huge economic event. And as we all know, this is all about our release from academic life. So certain students like to partake in certain events, some don't. In a survey of 651 people, 48% being male, 52% being female, Completed this survey was completed by Megan Patrick. She has a PhD and is research assistant professor at the University of Michigan and their Institute of Social Research. In the survey of 651 people, she did some questioning about students who traveled for spring break or what they did, and some statistics were taken from this. I'm going to rattle off a list of several. 83% of the interviewees reported an increase in alcohol consumption. Men reported 10 drinks consumed per night, and women 6 drinks consumed per night. At least 9% passed out from alcohol use, and 37% of men admitted to binge drinking during the day, and 25% of women admitted to binge drinking during the day. Also, 60% of students had a run-in with police. 1,300 were arrested in Panama City, Florida. 2,600 were arrested abroad. And 60% of students that made a travel to a beach location of that sort were arrested. So as you can tell, it's quite a wild event. People make certain decisions, some don't. This isn't everybody, but there's a little background on who does what and some numbers. For the future, it's clear that there's been an upward trend in everything associated with spring break, good or bad. There's been an increase in attendance, an increase in revenue, alcohol consumption, injury, and even arrests. Once again, to highlight the increase in attendance, 20,000 in 1959, 370,000 in 1985, and 1.5 million in 2015. Well, 2014 if you want to consider last year. That's almost an exponential curve of growth, so there's no telling where this is going to go. All other factors have grown in a similar fashion, so the trend's just going to continue upwards. And by the time we're parents, who knows what we'll have to deal with. Ultimately, this week-long excuse for us students to do as little work as possible has become a staple in our culture. Whether it's a good or bad thing, that's for you to consider. Enjoy your spring breaks, have fun, and now maybe you can impress your friends with a little background on how it all got started.